ladies and gents. Welcome to the Pristine Connections Podcast. We're doing something a little bit different today. So normally Ashley Furr, our amazing celebrity host, who's interviewing everyone else, is being the one that's interviewed today. So Ashley, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. I'm a little nervous. Maybe I won't be able to answer all the questions. I'm just kidding. I'm ready.
Well, excited to have you join us. First off, got a couple questions for you kind of about like your life and business, kind of what led you to where you're at right now. But tell us just a little bit about you. What got you to this point in your life?
A lot. I've done a lot, and I'm not even 30 yet, which is kind of crazy. But I'm proud of the story. So I did not finish college. I thought it was kind of stupid, to be completely honest, because I got to that point where I'm like, everything I'm going to school for, I can just do on the outside, and none of my parents went to college, anything like that. So it wasn't like I was, failing them by any means. It's just not something that we did. My parents found success themselves. My dad was a photographer for like 40 plus years, successful on his own. And then my mom's been in the oil and gas industry for forever, which that's had its many bumps and ups and downs, but she's been very successful with that. So I kind of just realized at that point, I'm like, I can just kind of do my own thing and figure it out. And I did. But, just being in business in general has always been my passion. I was very big into health and fitness. Helped start a smoothie store because I worked at Smoothie King in college. So I kind of just learned how they operated every day. And then I started to get my personal training license and things like that. And prior to that, I was a regional manager. Like I've always been in business and the operation side somehow, not saying I was great at it. I was only 21 at the time, So there was still a lot to learn, but the people that I had learned from have owned multiple businesses and they're big in real estate and investing and contracting work and all of that. So when they came to me with that idea, I was like, well, this is in health and wellness. It's everything I wanted to do. I jumped into that. Learned a lot about operating a business, especially when you hire young kids, like high school kids. No offense to them. It was a challenge, but it was fun because I felt proud of the work I did in the couple of years that I did it. They didn't invest a whole lot in the marketing side, and this was in Rockwall at the time, so I think that kind of hurt us a little bit when you are running up against some larger brand smoothie stores. There was a lot of good and a lot of bad and a lot of learning curves that really kind of molded me into that leadership role for sure. But being able to teach kids how to sweep and mop for the first time, because apparently not all parents do that. I don't know. It was adventurous and I had learned a lot. But at that point, I'm like, what do I really want to do with myself? I'm not just going to run a smoothie store for the rest of my life. I was young at the time. It was awesome. And fortunately, my now husband, his brother and sister, his sister worked for me and his brother owned the gymnastics facility next door to the smoothie store. So because of them, I met my now husband, who's been in construction for, I don't even know, 12 plus years at this point. But because of that, I learned a lot from Caden, who is a business owner in the gymnastics world of do I want to be my own business owner someday? And if I do, what does that look like? And do I want to stay in the health and wellness field, or do I want to move on into real estate? Because my bosses and the owners at the time were in that real estate field. So because of that, my sister, who is in real estate and has been in title for also 12 plus years, kind of transitioned me into that field. And since then, I've really just taken off with just different roles within title, and then just different jobs in general, which to a lot of people on a resume, if I were to go the corporate route, are like, what are you doing job hopping all the time? But to me, it's like, I'm really learning myself. Like I said, I'm not even 30 yet. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on myself to figure it out. I'm just trying to figure out what I really enjoy doing. And I've learned that it is real estate. I do enjoy marketing because I've learned a lot about how things should and shouldn't be. I'm not going to say social media is my biggest strong suit, but I've really learned how to figure it out. And so much has happened over time that I've gotten to just really learn from other people and how they do business and what's worked and not worked. So a very long, weird path to where I am now, but I'm pretty proud of being here because I'm not even 30 yet, Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, I feel like you gave us the 5-second version of the story, but now I feel like people want to know like how you and your husband actually met, besides the fact that like you happen to be in close proximity to some siblings at the time. But
yeah, so we are big country dancers in our family. My parents were in Pure Country. If y'all know that movie with George Strait, super cool. Nobody believes me, but I can pause the TV on my parents. So we're big country dancers. So Caden, myself, and my best friend were actually roommates. So we had always hung out. We always used to go out, go country dancing. And oddly enough, like I never really had met his brother at that time either, especially with how much we went out, because our family started hanging out. And they had told me about their brother and that I should meet him. But at the time I was getting out of just a crappy relationship, if that's even what you wanted to call it. And I wasn't super interested, but they had told me great things about him. And sure enough, he walked into my store and struck up a conversation with me. And oddly enough, like when he pulled up, we weren't super busy that day. It was raining and I knew it was him and I hadn't met him yet. Like I haven't even seen a picture of him, which is strange. But yeah, he walked right in and I just knew it was him talking to me. And I was so nervous because he was so nice. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you just this nice, And it was just very strange. And he asked me out and I toyed with it for a little bit and kind of like pulled him along because I'm like, no, like I'm good. And we all went country dancing again one night. And this time all of our families were together. He was there and he struck up a conversation with my dad. I feel like he did it on purpose. We still joke about that. And sure enough, since then, my dad was like, this is somebody that like, I think I would see you marrying. Like he's a really great guy. Cause he's like, have you met my daughter? And he's like, well, which one's your daughter? And he points to me and he's like, oh, I've met your daughter. Like she, I don't think likes me. And my dad's just like, what? Like, no, well, I'll have a conversation with her. And he did. He was supposed to wait till the next day. He walked right over to me and had a conversation with me. So since then,
super discreet, super subtle.
Yeah. So it all worked out. Obviously we've been together for 6 years now. I think we have 4-year-old, one on the way, and we celebrate 1 year of marriage on Friday. So
well, congratulations. That's super exciting.
Yeah. So a crazy story. There's a lot to it, but yeah, that's the short version of it.
Maybe that's a statement on society that like someone comes over, like someone that you don't really know. And if they're nice to you, you're like, this person's off. Like maybe it's like, you know, we can all look internally a little bit and be like,
we are very
what does
open.
Michael Jackson say? You know, take a look at the man in the mirror.
Yeah,
like,
well, yeah, it was for sure me. I had some doozies, and we still joke about our exes too sometimes because you have to have a little fun. But it's just that, you just never know, So I'm kind of glad I didn't brush it off because he's awesome. So
yeah,
I'm biased.
Well, super cool story.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your drive, like what motivates you. And then maybe after that, like tell us a little bit about like what you're doing now. Obviously you've done a lot of different things, from what it sounds like, from operating smoothie stores to like working in real estate, title.
Yeah.
But yeah, like what gets you out of bed in the morning? What motivates you?
Obviously my family, I mean, supporting now 2 kids, I guess I should say. I need to get used to saying that, that really drives me, just wanting the best for our family. Both of our families have kind of struggled growing up. They've been, really successful. We've gone through really hard times. And I think that's something that we've always talked about. He's very comfortable with his job, and that's something that I've been trying to get to. And it's kind of like, well, where do we want to be in a couple of years and how at this point are we going to get there?
Yeah.
And that's really the driving force. It's like, we no longer have one little mouth to feed. We'll have 2. And we have big aspirations of building a dream home and like being able to just be financially free because that's something that we've just struggled with, for years. Like we do really well and then something happens and then I feel like we're not doing well, in like COVID. That was a big one. Like we literally had just given birth to our daughter when COVID happened. Like that was a lot to learn from. And at that point it's kind of like money is never really the biggest driving force for us, but it's important because we're trying to just be smart about it and really just figure out like, is our businesses going to take us there? And if not, how do we make that happen to where it will? And we're not stressing about our jobs all the time because I used to do that. I used to work just crazy hours and be away from my family. And that's just that doesn't motivate me at all. Like I want to be home. I want to be present and I don't want to miss a game or a practice or anything like that. So my family is probably the number one motivator.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. It's my understanding that you just started
Yeah.
something new.
Yeah.
Tell us a little
So
bit more about
I
that.
am now the project manager for Beefyverse, thanks to you. Something, that I wasn't really expecting at all, but it worked out like just super great timing. So you were a client of ours in the past with previous jobs I've worked at. So we've always had that great working relationship, and I've kind of known what your company can do, and I've seen it obviously firsthand. So when you approached me about obviously doing the podcast and then it turning into like a full work position, that kind of just really got me into a tailspin of like just doing things for myself and like learning how to just, I don't know, be my own business per se. Obviously, I work for you, but it's helped me figure out like, okay, well, now that I'm doing this for you, I can actually go get my real estate license and do that, eventually. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now as of recent, a couple weeks ago. So,
Yeah. Well, I have some strengths. Organization is not one of them. So you've certainly been
yeah,
been
it's okay.
yeah. Ashley's laughing maybe a little bit too hard there. So
Sorry.
that's a sign.
No, it's
but
okay.
no, it's definitely good
Yeah.
timing to bring you on.
Yeah.
And you've been super helpful so
Yeah.
far.
But it's a testament to your business that you're there, that you are able to bring other people on too. So that's huge.
Yeah.
It's a big accomplishment.
Yeah. Thank you and welcome to the team.
Yeah, thanks.
But I guess one of my next questions, what have been some of your business challenges in business? Obviously, you've worked in a bunch of different industries doing a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
Like, what are some of the challenges that maybe made you who you are today? And some of the ones that maybe just like sucked, but,
Yeah.
pushed you in a direction
Yeah.
that was a good thing for you later down the road?
So, I mean, some of the biggest challenges is just change, economically and kind of just the state of the world. Real estate's big and, in a sense of like, if something's going on in the world, it'll affect real estate. So obviously interest rates are high right now. When I was in title, that would slow business down. Well, I'm in the business development role. And again, I always pretty much every podcast talk about saturated markets. Like there's a lot of real estate vendors, there's a lot of real estate agents, there's a lot of marketing agency. I mean, there's a lot of every type of business you can imagine. And that's the challenge is how are we supposed to get ahead of everything that's hitting us within the real estate market? Business is slowing down. I was in insurance for a while. I mean, imagine it's still ongoing when we think that everything's going to kind of turn and for the better, and it doesn't. Like it just stays stagnant.
Yeah.
Overcoming those objections from people. A lot of it's a confidence thing. So that's probably my biggest challenge is just being confident in exactly what we're doing, even when times get tough, because you have people coming at you which way. Doesn't Payne said it earlier today. Everybody's very emotional. And how do you combat that? Because I'm an emotional person, period. So if you're coming at me and you're emotional, well, I'm emotional too. And now I'm getting irritated because I'm trying to educate you and help you really understand why these things are happening. And I think that's really just the biggest challenge is everybody has something to say, but nobody really wants to listen. And that's very frustrating because
I feel like that's
we literally have a computer at our hands at all times with everything being spewed to you every which way. And it's like, well, what's right and what's not right? And back to my saturatedness, there's really great companies and there's really not great companies. And it all just comes down to, do you believe what they say? Do you believe what they say? Which is why, again, in the podcast, I'm always saying you got to lean on your competitors and just really learn from what they're doing. Because if somebody comes and asks you for something and you're just not quite sure, I mean, they have 500 other companies that they can go to that might do better at what they just asked for you to do, and that's challenging, but it's also a confidence thing like you had talked about. You just have to know what you bring to the table and what you're selling. And at the end of the day, if they want to do business with people that they like, know, and trust, I say that a lot for networking, because naturally they will. And you got to be human, you just have to be yourself and it'll come. But those are really just the biggest challenges I face personally.
Yeah.
So.
No, you bring up a really great point, and I feel like it's something that it's right almost 100% of the time in business, but there's a lot of people, like, they're emotional, like, they can't get out of their own head, and so they're thinking, oh, well, so-and-so is doing this thing that we're not doing.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're doing the same thing, and they're executing a little bit faster, and what happens is they feel the emotion of anger or frustration.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, okay, what do you do with that? Right? Do you say, hey, you know what? We're going to be better, right? We're going to do X, Y, or Z. Like, we're going to compete in the marketplace because it's like everyone wants to run a business until like you start competing with other people doing the same thing. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, stuff gets real.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, what are our differentiators? Like we were talking about earlier, like what do we actually bring to the table that other people don't? Right? That doesn't have to be a disruptor. You don't have to like have proprietary technology, but you have to be doing something. Right. And so like that's something that even I know we look at, and it's like, okay, there's like an SEO agency that decides that they want to take on social media, and you know they became a competitor overnight. It's like, okay, what are the things that they're doing well? Right. What are the things that maybe we could do better at that situation, them being a competitor of ours, kind of brings to light. So I think it's like opportunity.
It is.
It's like, do you get upset? Or are you like, all right, like, let's go. Like, you know, are you like thinking about it like an athlete? Or are you thinking about it like, hey, someone's messing with my system?
Sure. You always have to be ready to evolve. And I think that's something through the challenges, like, which I'm sure we might talk about, but like mentorship stuff. Like one thing I've learned from like working with Dustin, who has multiple businesses in just different areas of different industries, I should say, is he's always ready to pivot. And it's one of those where like when you ask somebody like, oh, you know, where are you going to take your business in, you know, the next 6 to 12 months? Because everybody always goal plans for how long? A year out.
Yeah.
Dustin will plan for 18 months out. And at first I thought that was the craziest idea. But every year at the end of the year, he gives us thick packets and we write down personal goals, business goals, where we see the agency going, where we see some of his other businesses going. Because at the time I helped with multiple, you know, and I thought it was really interesting because it was 18 months out. And I'm like, I don't even know what we're doing like 6 months out. Like, I don't even know what the market's going to look like tomorrow, you know?
Yeah.
But it was really interesting because that was its own challenge in itself too. It's like like where do I think we should be in a year and a half, you know, and just forget the year. Like we all have goals. We want to hit 1 million in revenue, whatever that may be. But then what? You know, most people will hit their goals. That's why they're goals. So you're supposed to hit your goal, but then you're supposed to keep going. So where are you going type thing? And I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about that. And it's an interesting perspective. But like I said, we have everything right at our fingertips. And you're just trying to be better and be ahead of everybody else, you know, and evolve and not tell everybody what you're doing, but give them a sense. Like you said, we have a competitor overnight and it's kind of like, well, what happened that made them all of a sudden want to start doing that? You know, now what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to combat that? Because now we're selling the same product pretty much.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's my soapbox.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Do you have any, I'm sure since you've worked in a number of different areas, in a number of different businesses, you've got some pretty crazy, pretty funny stories. What are some of your craziest stories or ones that are just like so out of the blue, kind of abnormal, that are just like sometimes real life is stranger than fiction?
I have one for like every job. Like for the smoothie store, obviously people are allergic to certain things. And the lady literally ordered something she was allergic to, but didn't say. Because I made one. Like she told me what to make her.
So she said like, I want this in my smoothie, and just like forgot that she was allergic to it.
Not even that. It's like, no, she told me what she was allergic to. I made her something that wasn't even remotely close to that, you know, that she would like. And then days later, she apparently told us that she had like an allergic reaction. It was stupid. And that kind of ticked me off because I'm just like, that's your bad. Like, I still apologize. And again, as a leader, you take initiative and apologize, even though I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah. And then had to change literally all of these procedures to make sure that doesn't happen again. That's one story. Cause I'm like, it's wild to me. I'm like, I've never had that happen, even at Smoothie King, but whatever. Title, you see all sorts of things. Cause we worked for an estate planning attorney when I first got into title. And that's where I learned most jobs that I did within title. So I was the receptionist, and then I was an assistant to my sister. But working for an estate planning attorney, you hear crazy stories, which I think, you know, on Crystal's episode, we talked about that too, because real estate will give you the craziest of stories. But you think these things happen, you hear about them happening, and then they actually happen, and you're like, oh, people are crazy, like actually crazy. And a lot of it's like family coming out of the woodworks. Like we're almost to closing day, and all of a sudden it's like there's a long lost child, that the new spouse had no idea about. I'm like, how do you not talk about that? Or people were married before, when Kyle and I signed on our house to close on our first house, there's the common names sheet that you sign, your signature on. And it's like, I looked at his, like, just to make sure, like, there's not some, like, funky name. And, like, he looked at mine and we made a joke about it because people will be at closing table and somebody was married before and they didn't talk about it. I mean, it's just wild to me. Those are the crazy stories. I'm sure I have plenty, but that's the craziest. So I won't talk about insurance ones because there's a lot that were like recent, but it's just unfortunate. So I won't get into those because I don't want to bring down the mood.
Yeah. I'm sure it's every boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife's dream to find out something about their significant other.
Yeah.
Due to some legal/financial obligation rather than just
it's
being
crazy.
Straightforward communicators.
Yeah. That's what I always say. I'm like, I think everybody should be in real estate once because the amount of things you learn in just such a short period of time will really take you places because it's just here's what not to do. It's like America's Funniest Videos, here's what you shouldn't do, but it's funny.
Well, I think real estate is one of those industries where, because you're dealing with a lot of personal financial transactions and there's a lot of like personal legal responsibilities and contracts being assigned, like you get into a bunch of people's business that you wouldn't if like, if someone's going to the local Toyota dealership and they're financing a car, they're pulling your credit, right? And making sure that like you're making enough money. Yeah. Like if you're a W-2 employee or like contractor to make sure that, you're good for the payments. Yeah. Right. Versus if you're in real estate, you're getting financing for a house, you're closing on a house. It's like there's a lot that goes into, multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars type transaction.
It's a big deal. I mean, it is. It's a very emotional process, but there's a lot of good feel good stories, just older people, move into the next thing and downsizing, and that was their family home for years. Like stuff like that's great. But I'm telling you, these crazy stories are something else. Something else.
So as a mother of one and soon to be mother of two, do you have a routine? I'm sure that routine will change a little bit once, you've got another one that you're taking care of. But what does your routine look like right now to help you like stay super alert? I know you do a lot of networking locally. You have your own group.
Yes.
Would love to hear you talk about that too.
Yeah.
But what does your routine look like?
Routines right now, I mean, just getting her to school on time, one, is just number one priority, which doesn't really happen all the time. But I mean, really just getting her up. I get her to school and then I come home and just take a minute to just kind of get myself together for the day and figure out exactly what I'm doing. Just review my calendar to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. And then, if there's downtime, like in the afternoon or after she goes to sleep, I typically read or I'm studying right now for the real estate exam. So that's what I'm doing like late at night. But really I try to relax right now just with this pregnancy. Typically we work out quite a bit though, or we'll go on walks and stuff. We're very outdoorsy people. We just like to be outside. And then obviously, we're at gymnastics or t-ball practice or t-ball games. So that also takes up quite a bit of time. So really just enjoying the downtime we have right now because it's going to change again and our routine will change again. So it just changes a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit, because I know, is it Tuesday mornings?
Yes.
You have your own networking group.
Yes.
Can you tell us how long you've been running the group, kind of some of the things that you've learned in running a networking group?
Yeah.
And just what you enjoy most about that process and building that community?
Mm-hmm. I was on leadership for McKinney Downtown Networking Group for a while. So that group has been independent for well over a year now. So I did that. And then when my job changed, I had to step out of that group, but still amazing group. They have like 100 people. And then Camry and I started the Cardinal Social in Melissa because we both live in Melissa, and just for the immediate surrounding area. So really just trying to tailor it to the community because that area is growing a lot, but there's a lot of business owners there. And we're trying to still keep that like small town feel and just get everybody connected, because there are a lot of really great businesses there. And that's really what Melissa's about, is just the community. So her and I started that group. We talked about it in January, started it in February, and we're at 30 members, which I'm actually pretty proud of because our goal was 15. So we doubled that in just a couple of months. And, we try to be different from other networking groups, but still be tailored to the networking and the mastermind piece. So we meet twice a month, second Tuesdays and then the fourth Tuesdays. And one is specifically for networking. We still have people come and present about their business, but giving them time to just talk, because it's really hard to schedule one-to-one meetings outside, even though that's still just as important. But allow them the time to just really connect while we're there. And then the mastermind obviously is just business topics. I think it's important. My sister and I run our Holy Smokes mastermind, which is at the Brass Tap right now, but typically it's at LG's, and just really dive into business stuff, because networking is important. But when you start, like for me, like I have a family, like you will not catch me at happy hours, because and Dustin kind of made a joke about it today, and I agree with him. I'm not going to say it on here, though, because I'm sure I'll offend some people. But, like, happy hours just don't do anything for me. I think it's a social hour and not, like, a true networking hour, couple of hours. And so just trying to be meaningful with the masterminds and, like, what you can really get out of your business, because the whole point is to go talk about challenges in business and how we're overcoming them. And then you leave and you feel fulfilled, and then you go about your day. Like that stuff's important to me, because I used to network all the time, like all the time. And now I'm just like, I'm going to pick and choose a couple that I think are great, which is why Pristine's is great. I mean, there's a ton of people that come. They give you ample time. There's a lot to it as to be a member. You get your magazine. You get featured quite a bit as well. And then obviously the podcast itself, like that's important too, but that's worthwhile. Like it's during the day. It's a short amount of time. You get in, you get out. And you move on. So I'm just very particular with how I network these days.
Wait, so what I'm understanding from you is that going to happy hours, drinking, and shoving your business cards at people maybe isn't the best way to grow your business? Is that what you're saying?
It is for some. Like if you're starting out, because people joke like a happy hour is like, it's just, I'm not going to say the joke because I really don't want people to come at me, but it's important if you're just starting out and you're really just trying to connect with people and you're trying to learn how to network, where to network, and what other connections you can get, because everybody else networks with other groups. I found McKinney downtown because I was networking at a happy hour or was hosting something, It's just the connections that you meet, I think, are the most important. But you need to be strategic. Like if I'm going to go out and just network with 50 plus people all the time and really not gain anything, then what am I doing? You got to go, you got to be intentional, which is why I'm very specific about what networking groups I go to. Like I know the clientele I need. This is where I'm going to find them. It's an hour out of my day. I can do it and then leave, and it's not all the time. And then I go back to work. Like that's just how I operate. But it took me 5 years to really even get to that point. So I'm just particular.
I think there's definitely a place for events like that, maybe if you're just starting a business, maybe you haven't done a whole lot of networking in the past, and you just need like people experience.
Absolutely.
Right? Like you just want to interact with other professionals in a way where it's like, we're not talking about business. We're not really talking about anything that's important. We're like just existing. Yeah. Right? We're just having a good time. Yeah. Right? Because I think there's a place for that. I think if you own a business, if you're like managing operations for a business like you are now.
Yeah. I don't have time.
The amount of time, like you look at efficiency. Yeah. It's like, you want to like sit down, have good conversations with people. But like, if we're just drinking and like talking about the NBA playoffs, like maybe that's not like the best use of everyone's time, nor like even the best use of like actually communicating with people or like connecting with people on a personal level.
Yeah. Because everybody cares about time and they want their time back, which is why most business owners are business owners. Like they have their own schedule and they have their own routine. And like, I don't know about you. Well, I know you're working late right now, but that's kind of why I'm here to help organize. So hopefully you don't have to work till 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. But I don't want to do that. I don't have to do that, which is why I'm just very particular. Like I'm very honest when it comes to that stuff, because I did it for so long and it affects things. So like I said, I have a family. Like I can't just be out drinking from 5 to 7 all the time. Like it's just not feasible. So,
So I'm 30. You're in your 20s. Both like younger people in like the business owner and like business operations crowd. Yeah. What is your advice to the younger generation? Like people in their 20s, maybe even their late teens that like have aspirations of becoming business owners, like running businesses, becoming entrepreneurs, like creating new products. Like what advice do you have for them? Like what do you think that they should be doing now, both mindset wise and just like preparing themselves to become really successful?
I think leaning on mentors, business coaches, if you have the means to hire a business coach, I think it's really important. But if you don't, just lean on different people that are in your industry or doing the things that you're interested in doing. Will really help you kind of get a sense of where you need to be if you're not quite there, like what you need to do to get there. But I'm also, which I've ruffled feathers on this argument plenty of times, but like again, I didn't graduate school, and I think the whole perception of you need X amount of experience to do this job is pretty stupid. Which is why I don't really care for corporate companies a lot of the times, because I've been there, done that. I think it's important to figure out what you like doing, because I've always said this. It is, if you like doing it, then it's really not a job. Like it's just your passion at that point. Like you don't want to work. You don't want to work 40 hours a week just to pay your bills. You want to enjoy paying your bills. You know, I can't remember the exact saying for that, but like I want to enjoy what I am doing for a job, and I will not stop until I find that job that really fulfills me, which now, like I'm in the marketing space, like we still have hours, but like if I need to leave for something, I can leave, and it's not the end of the world, and nobody's tracking me down. Like, where the heck are you? And this needs to be done. And I'm working till like 9:00 at night. Like you don't have to do that. And if you are doing that, I would suggest start really just leaning on your friends or your family or literally anybody that gives great advice or is in a field that you would like to be in or interested in, and try it. Like I said, I'm in my 20s, and it looks like I have done 500 jobs, and it doesn't look good to a lot of people, but for me, it's everything I needed to get to where I am at now. And I think that's important, you know. That is my advice. Like, just do what makes you happy, and you will not work a day in your life.
Well, have you checked to see if you're the record holder for most company tags on LinkedIn yet? But
Probably
I mean,
no, probably not. And that's fine. I don't want to be. I'm just, you know, it took me a while to get there, and there was a lot of jobs that I thought I would be at, and it just didn't work out. And that's totally fine too. Like I learned something, and that's the point. So
yeah.
I will say I'm just tired. I'm tired of moving. I've said that the last couple of times I've moved, you know, but it had to happen because it got me to be where I want to be. And like, I like the marketing realm, and now I get to do all of that and operations, which I really liked doing. And I finally got there. It just took a couple years.
Yeah. Big part of the reason that you're doing what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Making
very
sure
big.
that's up to snuff.
Yeah. Which is great. And I'll learn, because I don't know everything. Obviously there's still plenty of room to grow, and that's the point. So.
Yeah. I definitely sympathize with that. Like, I remember being like 22, 23, 24, and like feeling that I had everything figured out in that particular part of my life, and feeling the frustration of, well, like, I'm not getting a raise, I'm not getting a promotion.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I could be doing a lot more if I had people working for me. I feel like people don't see or understand my vision. And again, to your point, I think that's why a lot of people become entrepreneurs and business owners. Like, they're tired of people telling them no.
Yeah.
And like seeing an opportunity and not being able to execute on that. But I think, you know, having all those different experiences, like, turns you, like, if you enjoy that experience, like, a lot of it does come down to, like, do you enjoy the experience of learning?
Sure.
Because if you don't enjoy the experience of learning, you're not going to learn a whole lot. So on the other side of things, you know, if you enjoy kind of the process, even if it sucks, like if you get out of college and like I was making like 40, 45K a year and like running marketing for hundreds of people across the country, right? In my corporate job. And it just comes down to like, can you enjoy that experience for what it is? And then also recognize when it's time to move to the next opportunity. Because it's like, it's balancing those two things.
I mean, and back to that point is I know so many people that did graduate college with very specific degrees that would take them places that they really wanted to go, but then it was a nightmare trying to find anything remotely close to what they were doing. When in reality, they should have probably gotten a job in that field that they graduated with. And that's just mine. Like that's strange to me. And I just don't care for that. And I'm not saying like I'm better, you know, you're never better than somebody else, but I'm like, how can I be successful now? I'm 28. I'm like, and I didn't finish college, but they always like put a nose up to it. And they're just like, well, you didn't finish college. You don't have a degree. And I'm like, yeah, but I personally feel like I'm being a little bit more successful than you are currently. Like you're still trying to figure out your job situation and getting paid what you should be worth because of that degree, you know? And again, I'm not saying anything against that. Like if you were going to college to get your degree, awesome. Like sometimes I wish I finished, but at the same time, I'm like, I'm kind of glad I didn't because here I am, you know? So I'm sure I'll hear all about this if this gets posted, but anyways.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Well, for the Office buffs that watch the podcast, it's the Andy situation where he's like, I don't know if you've heard, but I went to Cornell. And like it's like a recurring thing where it's like that becomes like his identity as a character, and it's like great, like that's awesome. Like I think if you look backwards, you know, whether that's college or anything else, like if you're relying on that for any sense of identity, you're gonna be disappointed. Yeah, because it's like, hey, you know what? Like there's some jobs, and like a lot of great jobs, they're really not gonna care what college you went to. They're not gonna care what you got your degree in as long as you can do the job.
And they're trying to figure out how to just take that away, period. Like not making that have to be a requirement, because there is such a high demand for a lot of jobs, but a lot of people don't have degrees because they may not, like I didn't necessarily have the means to, like I would have had to go the financial aid route. My parents helped me through community college, but then after that, I'm like, not everybody has opportunity, which is why I'm saying I'm not knocking not going, but that just isn't an option for a good chunk of people, you know, and so you can still be successful without a degree.
No, I think I almost would have done the same thing as you, because I was like 4 years into college. I kind of took like one semester where I think I took like 6 credits instead of like the full 18 that you could, just because I was like, I'm burnt out. Like I need a break. I'm still going to like work, like do my internships. But like it took me 5 years to graduate, and it was at the end of that 4th year, I was like, is this even worth it? Yeah. And I think if like I had that kind of feeling when I was 2 years in, I probably would have dropped out and just like started doing my own thing. Yeah. But I was like, you know what? It's 12 more months. Like you already invested X amount of money, like had a little bit of help from parents, which helped out. But it's like, okay, you've gotten almost all the way. You've almost finished the race. Let's just finish the race. And then it's like, okay, you get that slip of paper.
I know,
Maybe I personally don't like that paper is worth as much as some people think it is. And I think it's interesting too. You made a point about like degrees and like whether or not those are like playing as big of a role in today's economy. There's a lot of blue collar type jobs, welding, construction, like plumbing, even like decently high paying jobs if you start building a career on them. And there's a shortage of those kinds of people. Like there's shortages of lots of kind of jobs, right? You know, there's a shortage of radiologists. I was talking with my dad on the phone the other day. Like they're bringing sometimes older radiologists back in because they don't have the younger radiologists to actually read cases. So like, I'm not saying that there's any singular rule that applies to all different industries, but it is interesting the people that like you were saying, hey, you know what? Is it worth it for me to get a degree, right? Like, because I think we kind of grew up in the generation where it's like college is the thing that you did. Right? It's like, which college are you going to was the question. Like for me and all my classmates coming out of high school, it wasn't, hey, are you taking a gap year? Hey, are you like going to trade school? Right? I personally don't like gap years. I think that gap years are kind of like, they tend to be like an excuse to travel the world and like screw around when you're 18. Go to college but I'm just like, if you can like at least be moving, doing something. When you're 18, because I think some people get stuck in that gap year mindset and it like translates out, and gap year becomes gap year 2, 3, 4, and then all of a sudden, you know, you're on the beach somewhere just chilling out, you know, maybe doing like tourism type jobs, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
That's awesome.
But I think, you know, that's a path that people choose for themselves, and more power to them if that's what makes them happy. Yeah,
like for me, like I loved college. I enjoyed learning. Like I mean, I liked the schoolwork itself, but I wasn't a test taker, and I like that isn't going to help me pass college and get a degree. So I mean, I'm not going to keep hurting myself, you know, grade wise, because I'm just not a good test taker. It's just, I don't know. It was just not for me. Like I loved college. Don't get me wrong. Like I had a good time, but I knew that and I had changed my degree path like 2 or 3 times. Like I was going to go into geology, like my mom, and then I was going to be a meteorologist because I thought that was so cool. And then I was going to be a dietitian because I started really wanting to be in health and wellness, but organic chemistry was not for me. And I'm like, what am I doing? So I left and went in the business route. I was like, I'll just figure it out. And I did.
I think his name was Mr. Kirby, my high school chemistry teacher. And he was like the one that taught me that chemistry is not for me. So,
I mean, hey, but at least he told you, you know, instead of just figuring it out along the way. So I don't know. I just think there's more ways than one to learn and get where you need to go. And I think, fortunately, that's how everything's moving towards that. So,
yeah.
Anyways, that's my soapbox. I have very strong opinions on things. So,
well, we like hearing your strong opinions on things. So thank you for joining the podcast. Thank you so much. Glad to kind of hear some of your insights and kind of what you're up to these days and how that experience is translated into like stuff that's really helpful for the younger generation. But if people are looking to find you, social media, websites, like where are the best places to look, and we'll make sure to add that to the YouTube description.
I mean, obviously all the Beefyverse social accounts that we have, and then my personal stuff, we can drop it in, but I'm very particular about who I friend and not these days. Just, anyways, again, personal opinion. So
yeah,
I'm very private with my personal stuff. So yeah, but definitely all the Beefyverse social sites.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys in the next one.